Hello again. David Hosey from Hosey Consulting and Training. Today I'll be talking over my current carry gun, Walther PDP. And unlike some reviews where, they got it yesterday, they put a few hundred rounds to it, now their initial impressions. I got this 10 months ago, just soon after it came out. I've got over 3,000 rounds through it, including like a case of my carry ammo. Federal HST, if you're curious, in 124 grain. I've put a lot of use into this, ran it like 1,000 rounds without cleaning, carried it hunting, carried it into some not great places. I live in the shadow of Portland here. And give you a really idea of what this works, how it doesn't work, some of its strengths and weaknesses, and just give you a good in-depth review. So, close in with a red dot pistol. This is where we get told that it doesn't work as well. Well, the first shot's there, obviously. I'm just doing one-handed. That full-size gun feels my hand quite well, and I can work recoil better than like say a Hellcat or a SIG 365. As I push out and start to acquire the sights, I'm not looking at the red dot itself. I'm looking at the red dot frame and superimposing it over the body there. That gives me an area not horribly big. I can easily index it and take shots into vitals at this range. I'm only going back to 3 yards. And then acquire just a little bit here, and I can put those precise headshots in and actually acquire the dart a tenth of a second later. But a lot of people will tell you close in a red dot won't work. They're not really trying with it. Or maybe they haven't tried this, or maybe it goes against their mind just to use this as a big giant ghost ring. It can work, and it can work really well, and I can get speed with it, and I can be quicker than my iron sights with it. And then that fraction of a second, I pick up the red dot, and I can do that precision, and I'm picking which eye I'm putting the round into. But full-size pistol allows me the recoil, got the red dot that I can use for close and far. And a lot of people don't practice this distance. And if it's a carry gun or a fighting pistol that you have, this is where it should be being used and practiced at. Everyone does the intermediate distance. They don't like this. They don't like way out yonder. I'll show later 100, 150 yards. And this could do well at that. And that's where the red dot really shines. But it could also do this close-in work. And this gun with this trigger, the cadence is really good. And that red dot frame allows me a really good sight acquisition at close range. So, oversized controls on here allow really good and quick reloads. Problem with that, because we'll talk about, we'll compare this to like a Glock inside later. Problem with that compared to a Glock is I can also induce malfunctions if I've not practiced with it. The only malfunctions I've induced with this one are premature lock open if I don't put my fingers right here. You can see it's locked open. It's still a full magazine and it locked open. The other ones I can get is my hands here don't normally, I've got medium-sized hands, don't normally hit this oversized magazine release, which sticks out a little bit more than, say, a Glock. I'll have some clients with their oversized, they got paws, like catcher's mitts for gloves, really large ones, and they'll sometimes hit and induce a malfunction on that from that oversized magazine. Now, this is something you can change with how you grip the gun differently, and also I work my thumbs like this so I don't hit that magazine release. But those are the only malfunctions I've done about 4 times when I was getting used to it in the first 1,000 rounds. A little embarrassing during a teaching class that I got to demonstrate a speed reload. They thought I was all cool and didn't know that I actually had done it. Had screwed up on a half full magazine. But this is something you have to train with the gun to understand. And if you're used to, say, again, a Glock with smaller controls, you may induce these malfunctions to get the training down to work with this and change your hand side, your grip, like my thumbs here, and then making sure you don't have large mitts that can smash that. If you do have large mitts, you have to modify your hand grip a little bit and where your hands interface together and work on your grip. You can do that so you won't have a problem, but it's again a training thing. So I'm here in the classroom. We're going to talk over the Walther, compare it to some of its contemporaries and the previous Walthers that came before it. Real quick technical note, this is getting filmed in May. Back in the winters when my outside filming was done. Some life complexities happened and you're getting a longer review. When I say 3,000 rounds in other parts of this, it's closer to 3,500, and that includes over 500 of my carry ammo. So you're getting even more solid, in-depth review on this. Next thing, it is clear all the weapons that I'm going to show and compare it to are clear. There's no ammunition in this room if you're concerned about the safety of what's going on here. So, PPQ. It's not. This is a PPQ. It's a PDP, which is a product improved PPQ. How close is it to the old thing? So, this assembly here can take off the side. Previous PPQ. Quick note on these. I've had this one for like 8-ish years, and I've got like 10,000 rounds to them. So a fair amount of just feel for the whole thing, carried with it, shot varmints with it. Been in some not great places with them. But look, PPQ slide, PDP body, PPQ frame, PDP top. That's how interchangeable they are. You can't do that with multiple generations of Glocks. It is not a chassis system like the SIG, but it is that interchangeable, and different barrel lengths will work the same as well. In fact, the barrels are interchangeable. Next thing, the magazines are interchangeable. These are PPQ magazines. In fact, I got this with the restricted state 10 round setup, and I've been using some of these ones are, again, 8 years old. I've got like 12 and a half of them. So 15 flush rounders fit, the 17 extended round ones fit. Quick note on these, really resilient, drop them on the ground a bunch, all kinds of reloading cycles. I'll occasionally clean them off when I run suppressors on them and they get gritty. The whole thing, they just work well. The finish has gotten a little worn down, you can see on them, but excellent magazines. You can't say a bad thing about them. So we're going to talk top to bottom here and compare it a bit to the PPQ. Top, sights. They are different than the PPQ sights. PPQ sights had an adjustment here and were about lower. It still used a front Glock setup, but a rear one that was specific to the PPQ. The new ones tapped into the Glock infrastructure and uses Glock sights front and rear. In fact, when I bought this, just went into a different gun store, 10 minutes later, had Trigicon suppressor height HD sights on it. Fantastic. Next thing going on down, it's got a good deep cut, better than a lot of its competitors for an RMR or any other miniaturized red dot you want to put on that. It did not come with the plate. It only came with a cover, a simple cover plate, and it was plastic to boot. You have to send in to Walther to get the plate. I got mine back in a week. It's kind of a stealth registration thing. If you want to get more plates, it'll cost you money. This is different than, say, a Glock, where you have 4 plates that come with it. These plates seem better. There is some controversy that the plates only work with the screws holding them. They don't have any pivots or any locking pieces in between, except for the front and back here. It seems to work really well. Not sheared off, and while there's a lot of people on the internet that did hue and cry at first that it's going to beat itself to death, you know, it's been out for pushing 1.5 years, and that hasn't happened. And 3,500 rounds, it hasn't happened to me, and I've got some clients that have these as well. and really good luck with it. Next thing, super terrain, or what they call it. These are these extremely large, aggressive raised slide serrations. They did not have them before. The previous one worked pretty well, but you'd have to, squeeze a little bit to do it. You just apply a light amount of pressure, and these pick up really well. So it requires less strength to pick up, otherwise they work really well when wet. Coming down here, we have these over large slide stop, slide release, and they work well with either hand. In the shooting portion, I showed how this can induce malfunctions. The 4 malfunctions I have had with this have been me inducing it. This is the exact same. It's funny. I've had these with Walther with all the problem. I never had that really malfunction. I've had some clients who rented it with the extended magazine release that have popped that out when they had large hands. But whatever reason, occasionally pushing up or pushing down on this, if I do thumb over thumb like this, works fine. And one-handed, my normal grip, it works fine. So that's just a training issue with it. There has some advantages. I'll show just a little bit to that. Texture here is a lot more aggressive texture than the previous Walther. Previous Walther had a little bit of finger grooves. This does not have finger grooves here. It has some slight finger grooves onto the side. Then this little extra lip that extends on here, make a big point on that to help pull it down for red dots, to get the red dot line naturally. The previous one kind of had a finger groove to it, might be a bit more exaggerated. What this does do actually is really help with recoil control. With the trigger, we're going to get to that in just a second. And slides may be a touch higher, but with that grip, I'm able to control recoil really well on this, and the whole tackiness on it. It's an easy gun to shoot quickly, and that goes into the trigger. Again, clear, slack taken out, and then quick break. There is a little bit of mush transition, but it's like a millimeter through. Breakage point's about 5 pounds, like say a stock 1911 trigger GI stock, not the new like a Kimber or Wilson Combat where it's 3.5 pounds. It's not that. It stayed pretty consistent all the way through. Compared to a Glock trigger, it's great. CZ, Karnak, and HK have similar preloaded strikers. A Glock right here, getting clear. There's some mush as you begin to pull it there. Mush. What you're actually doing is cocking the striker. The slack that you see out of here, there's no mush. Whoops, you hit the trigger. You're taking out is just spring loaded in there, and then it does a very quick break. It's an easy trigger to do. In fact, that slack is really almost a safety feature. But once you get shooting, the reset is short. The PPQ used to be police pistol quick. The PDP is still a very quick pistol. So this trigger allows you to be quick and accurate. You can't make a trigger excuse on that. If you're screwing up the trigger on this, it's you, not the gun. With the precision of the RMR and that trigger, distance works fairly well. We'll transition here real quick to me 100, 120, 150 yards and show you what it does. Okay, so here we are, 100 yards. Nice and slow, like almost you take a rifle shot. Okay, now let's go back further and see what we can do. So here, 120. So we'll go a little further back. So here we are about 150, about 42 degrees, about 12 mile per hour wind. It's mostly coming from 6 o'clock, but occasionally flaring up to 8 or 9. So I'm going to hold a little to the left on my hold here at 150. Here we go. So it's mostly just that wind hold I got to work on there, and that and keeping this thing steady enough for the dot on it. But it'll do 150 even in conditions like this. And fingers aren't completely numb yet either, so that helps too. Quick addendum here. Found this recovered bullet when I was cleaning things up. Always practice with my carry ammo any distance shots, so if I need it, I know exactly what to do instead of going full metal jacket. It costs some money, but now I know. A little bit of dirt on this whole thing and everything else, and I had to dig it out a bit. This is a miss at 100 or 150 yards. My HSTs out of my carry gun will expand. People get a little cheap and don't practice some of these things with their carry ammo. You don't get this kind of data without doing that. I now know what I've got on my hip will hit at that distance, at a football field and a half, and expand. Okay, you saw what I could do at a distance. That really shows in part any gun, if you put the time and money and ammunition into it, and that effort with getting some training. I've even trained with other people with this gun. Aside from being a demonstration gun for my own training, hunted and killed varmints with it. Spent a lot to it. Extension of my lifestyle. So a couple things in the lifestyle, we'll go over that in a bit. Right now I'm going to compare it to some of its contemporaries in size and controls and everything else. So Glock, it's a little bit bigger than a Glock. The full-size version, of course, would be comparable to a Glock 17, but the compact, which this is with 15 rounds, is compatible to a Glock 19. It is a fraction of an inch longer. It is a touch taller, mostly on this extension on the back of the magazine. And width-wise, you can compare it to almost to the RMRs there. The Glock frame might be a bit as wide, but the top is a bit wide here. On concealment on the back, this is a touch narrower, and it's really the butt of that pistol that is through your clothing is one of the big concealment issues. Next here, SIG. This is a compact model. Has a 3.8 inch barrel instead of a 4-inch barrel. If you include the beaver tail, they're about the same length, but the frame size, this is a bit bigger frame. Height, they're almost identical. Width, it's a little wider with the Walther, but that's that super terrain kind of sticking out. They didn't really as much build up the slide as build up the serrations, the raised part of the serrations out. If you include this over shield here on the SIG Romeo 1, it's about the same width, so you're not getting much there. Grip circumference, the Glock, or how your fingers go along, the Glock was about the same, and this, there might be a fraction of a tenth of an inch for an easier grip. Last, compare it to a Beretta. This is a Beretta, full-sized, but it's a little narrow up here, and believe it or not, the Beretta is actually, this is called 17 rounds and has a 4.5 inch barrel. It's a little easier to grip with the Beretta. Width-wise, and the Beretta's got a fat slide. The Beretta's slide is heavier overall, and it's a heavier gun, but these, again, raised terrain make it stick out a little bit. But a lot of that terrain that's getting raised up there is in your holster, so it doesn't cause much of a problem. Slide's about the same. This just has the extended barrel. Height, no, the Beretta is taller, but this is, again, a full-size 17-rounder. This was the full-size PDP. They'd be about even. So what does that mean? It means it's very similar to compatible things in the marketplace. One thing where the Walther comes in addition to its trigger, which is, I mean, HK, CZ, and a couple others have a similar trigger that's preloaded, but this is a very good trigger. That's where it beats these contemporaries out. I've got an improved trigger on the Beretta, and it's close. But is its oversized controls. And you think, well, that's game gunning, or I can use Glock controls just fine. What I mean for that is gloves. So actually here, got a regular shooting glove, and this is slightly insulated, but they're OJ fit on my gloves. I get them super tight so I can work with them. With this, the slide release works really well, and the magazine release. Show it again over here, actually, with the Glock. The mag release, I got to shift my hand. It's just a touch and effort to get it with this glove. But if I put on full-size work gloves, and these are still narrow, see the struggle to get into them? I don't have oversized gloves. These are the and medium hand size. Putting the magazine in, get the slide lock down. I don't need to change my grip, drop the magazine. I don't need to change my grip. And we'll accidentally turn on the light. If I actually do it otherwise, I can put my finger in without depressing the trigger. Importante. The Glock, I cannot put in my finger. That's pushing, begin the finger safety back on. Put a magazine in. I have to shift my hand hard to do slide release and hard to do slide release. Why does a big glove matter? And why does it work so well on this? So these specific gloves I was wearing last year when I had an ice storm. Without power for 2 weeks. After the first day, cell phones went away, stopped working, and texting would get through in 6 hours. 911 wasn't a thing. And I was mostly wearing these gloves, working chainsaws. This was what was on my hip. I live in the shadow of Portland. Previous with the fires, just a little bit before the ice storm, looting near where I am was a problem. I've had to run, you can call them homeless, they're druggies or whatever else like that, not good people off the property multiple times. This is what's on my hip when I do it. I may or may not have gloves on my hands when I do it. That's my lifestyle. The Walther works really well with its gloves. And you go, well, it should be no problem. The Glock is like the king of duty pistols, and that trigger guard should work. It's always been a problem with the Glock. And it gets all those contracts, but it's in spite of that narrow trigger guard. This large trigger guard works really well. So there you can see my red dot. People like talk about open emitters. Oh, in the rain, they'll have problems. So I just got back after dealing with my dogs, see dogs there, tangling up with a coyote, and had this out in compressed ready in rain and hail for 15 minutes. Didn't get the coyote. Maybe some of you viewers might be able to accomplish this, but from 80 to 120 yards through a mature hazelnut orchard, sub 2 second snapshots I cannot quite do with a pistol. If the cat would have given me 3 seconds, I probably would have had him, but sub 2 seconds, not really. But the point of this is, so this is a year old, or 11 months old, has holster wear, and this is the life it lives. It gets out in the rain and everything else. The red dot got pretty wet at one point. It got the starburst thing because enough water got in the channel there. Quick shake, cleared it up, and I can still see through it. I don't have to worry about the electronics on this. White light still works. My hands are the most fragile thing in this setup. So if people worry about the red dot here, and I'm gonna eventually get a closed emitter red dot. That's for sure, because this could have been worse. But again, this is 40 degrees, alternating rain and sleet, not fogging up. The red dot's you're able to clearly see the red dot. It works. And that's about as real world as you can get. And I had it out for a legit reason, going after things. You can see how soaked I am otherwise. And the silly dogs are okay as well. But anyway, back to the classroom. Okay, enough on the trigger guard and everything else. What does this give you? That's what it really comes down to compared to the Glock, the SIG, the Beretta. Or you can even throw Smith & Wesson, Rugers, HK, CZs, whatever else on here. All of those are good guns. If you buy those and put the time and effort into it, you can get a good thing out of it. This fits me and my lifestyle. I like it a lot. That's why I have several of them. I'm probably going to get some more PDPs. Great open emitter here. I'm going to get a closed emitter, probably an aim point. The one thing that I do have out of this, in addition to all the time I had on the earlier Walthers, is I've got 3,000 rounds on this. Every point at 5 yards, from 5 yards to 150 yards, every 5-yard increment, I have practiced. I've done day or night practice with this. Again, 3,500 rounds. Worked it with night vision. So this is really not the cost of the gun or cost of the ammunition. This gives me a skill set and a tool to solve problems. Problems that may occur if I'm wearing gloves, I'm going anywhere, I'm going to town. I can conceal this pistol and have it on me. If it's my lifestyle, I may have to take long-range shots on a coyote or solve other problems at distance. It does that well. If you want a gun that will work well with gloves, can be accurate and relatively fast, and is about the size of its contemporaries, this was probably the gun for you. If you want to go with the Glock or another thing, try it, fit your hand. The biggest thing with this is get training and get off the square range. Don't buy it and put it away. Dry fire the snot out of the thing. Shoot through cases of ammo. Make it a weapon, not a gun. And that's about what I got to say about anything here. Thank you for your time and consideration. Good day.